You're listening to the From Imposter to Empowered podcast. I'm your host, Jill Perrick, a business and mindset coach who specializes in imposter syndrome. If you feel like you're not as smart, capable, or worthy as you actually are, and that someone is going to find you out, then you've come to the right place. I went from being a struggling government worker, working my coaching business on the side, but feeling unworthy and burnt out, to making multiple six figures helping women overcome imposter syndrome so they too can sign clients, make bank, and have the business or career of their dreams. I am nothing special. I have a stuttering disability, ADHD, and I struggle with anxiety and depression. So if I can learn how to feel good enough and overcome my inner imposter, then so can you. Let's dig in. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to the From Imposter to Empowered podcast. Before we get into this episode about overwhelm, I just want to shout out one of my one-to-one clients who just sent one of her biggest proposals to date to a client. It is an $11,600 contract, and she said to me that one of her goals was to be able to pay the full amount of her rent, and she lives in California. She lives in a beautiful house in California, her dream was to be able to pay it comfortably and still do all the things that she really wants to do. And when we first started working together, she was feeling insecure about her business. She felt very unworthy with no confidence in sales. She dreaded getting on sales calls. She would actually sabotage her sales calls and get them to sign with somebody else or talk them out of working with her because she just felt like such an imposter and so afraid of rejection and failure. And now she's making consistent, I think, between 4 to 5K months, and she has just sent her biggest proposal to date, and she feels so confident and sure of herself. She loves getting on sales calls, and she gets on sales calls all the time now, constantly, and she is able to pay the full amount of her rent comfortably with her business income. And I'm so proud of her. She's come such a long way, and this is just a small example of what you can create inside of one-to-one coaching when you go all in on your self-worth and your confidence and this investment in your business, because truly how you show up, the content that you create, and the way that you show up for yourself and for your clients all comes from the thoughts and feelings that you have. And if you have thoughts of unworthiness, if you feel like an imposter, if you feel like you're not confident and it comes through when you sell, these are all things that we tackle in one-to-one coaching. We talk about your stories around money. We talk about your stories around receiving money and having it. And you will truly feel worthy of having a six-figure business, and that is what we are going to create together in one-to-one coaching. So go to the link in my show notes and book a sales call with me. Okay, so today we're going to talk about overwhelm. This was a request from a follower, and you know that I keep it real, but this is what I think about overwhelm. Overwhelm happens when we have resistance to what is. So I'm going to say that again. Overwhelm is what happens when we have resistance to what is. And I think overwhelm happens through this resistance because we think it shouldn't be that way. So we feel overwhelmed because we think all of these things are happening and it shouldn't be. And I think it stems from a feeling of, I'm doing something wrong, I shouldn't have to do all of these things. You're looking for a reprieve, and you just feel like there is a lot on your plate and it's causing you to feel hopeless. And that's the first thing I would say, is that the overwhelm is coming from the resistance in terms of your current situation, in terms of things should not be that way. So I really need you to hear that, because when I worked my full-time job and I ran my business and I was growing it, overwhelm to me was a constant story that I had in my head. It's like those people that always say that they're busy, and it's just, they're always busy. It doesn't matter what they're doing. They are always busy. And it's because your brain is busy. It is your brain that is telling you, you have to do all of these things. These are the things that are required for you to be successful, and you have to do them or you're doing something wrong. And that is a big reason why you're feeling overwhelmed. So first, I want you to take a step back, take a big deep breath, and I want you to truly audit what you are doing when it comes to your business. Audit how you're spending your time. What are the tasks that you're doing? And I would challenge you to actually question the tasks that you're doing, and are they tasks that you actually think or that are actually moving the needle, or just things that you think you should be doing. So I have a client, and she has worked with a couple other business coaches, and one thing that she came to me with was that she just felt so overwhelmed by all the things that she had to do in her business, and for her it turned into just simply not doing them, by simply avoiding. So there's some people who will avoid, and there's some people who will like overdo it, right? So with her, it looked like avoidance. And it was because she had the thoughts and the beliefs that she had to be in the DMs to connect with people. She had to be in DMs constantly and selling and pitching and cold pitching to them. That's what she believed would make her the money that she wanted to make, because that was a belief that was instilled in her by another business coach. And this business coach was not wrong for teaching her this. They were probably teaching her what they had been taught and what had worked for them, right? But it doesn't have to be her only truth. And I told her that. I was like, I have never cold pitched in my life, ever. And I have made over $300,000 by showing up, selling, creating amazing content, and attracting people to me, having real conversations, and asking them to book a sales call with me, and inviting them to through my content, and then them reaching out to work with me. That is just the truth, 100% the truth. And she was just so stuck and hung up on this belief that this is the way it has to be. And that was what was causing her overwhelm. So again, overwhelm is resistance to what is and what you think should be. So really question, what tasks are you doing in your business? What things are you doing that you think you should be, but aren't true to you? And you will find that a lot of them come from this thought or this belief of seeing other people doing it, or literally having somebody say you should be doing this, okay? Here's what I think you should be doing, okay? Here's what I think you should be doing. If you are starting your business, growing your business, even working on it and working to sign clients, I think you should be creating content and showing up for yourself. If you are not doing anything else, I think showing up for yourself means you show up on stories, or you show up in some content-driven way, and you show up for your brain. So you are doing the thought work, you're journaling, you're meditating, you're taking care of your brain, okay? First and foremost. And I teach you how to do this. If you work with me, I teach you how to do the thought work. I teach you how to do the belief work. I teach you how to be productive with your routine so you can show up in the best way possible, right? And I just think it doesn't have to be so complicated, but we tell ourselves we need to be doing all of these things. For me, when I was working full time, I had no option. I could not fuck around. So I had to work all day and come home from work, and I would have to just do a couple of things. And for me, the number one thing was to show up and create content. So I spent all of my time creating content and showing up. And if you're telling yourself, but that doesn't feel like enough, but that is what it is. You are working when you're showing up on your social media. It's just a different kind of work that you're not used to, but it is still working. And that is your number one job right now, is to create content that attracts people, create content that talks about your skills and how you use your skills and how you help people over and over and over again. It's a lot of repetition, which can sound very boring, but that's all that it is people saw that I was saying the same things all the time, that I said I could help them, that I was showing up and speaking to them, and then the clients started to come. And it was not because I did some crazy strategy or did anything like that, but it was simply from me doing the same shit over and over and over again. Yes, I did have a podcast as well. So I did have this podcast, so I did do that. And I continued with the story of I'm overwhelmed for a very, very long time. But overwhelm is created through your thoughts. Even if you have a lot of things on your personal plate, that is totally okay. And I totally believe you that you have a lot of things happening in your life. And that doesn't mean that you are overwhelmed in your business. And that doesn't mean that bad things are going to happen or that you're not going to be successful. It just means that you need to pull back, really look at what you're doing, and think, is this necessary, or is it just something that I'm telling myself I need to be doing because somebody else told me I should, or because I saw on Instagram and somebody said you should be doing this, so I convinced myself I should be doing that. But really, to make it plain and simple, show up, create content for your audience, and do that consistently, and work on your brain, work on your mindset, and because that is the thing that is going to drive your content, right? So feeling like an expert, feeling good enough, feeling like you have something to say, these are all things that you need to work on behind the scenes. So when you do show up, your content is powerful and potent, and you are speaking to your audience. You are speaking directly to them. But overwhelm is created through your thoughts. Overwhelm is, oh my God, I have all these things I should be doing and I'm not doing enough. But again, I'm not doing enough is just another flavor of I'm not good enough. I'm not doing enough is just coming from that continuous story that you constantly replay, that everything you do and everything you are isn't enough. But if you are showing up, whether that's on stories, on LinkedIn, whatever you do, creating content to help your ideal client and constantly saying, this is how you can work with me, then that is more than enough, right? That is more than enough. You are doing more than enough, and that's all you need to do. If I had to completely start over, that's all I would spend my time on. That's all I would spend my time on, is just creating content, taking care of myself and my brain and my emotions, self-care, all of those things, so I can show up powerfully when I do show up. And very simply put, I have this exact same client. We were coaching and talking it through, and she just had a baby. So about, I think it was like 8 months ago or so, she had her first child. So she has a whole other job, and she was telling herself, I can't show up the way that I used to show up, which was all the time, constantly, whenever she felt like it. And I said, you have to rejig what you think about showing up. You just have to reframe the fact that, okay, now I have these different intentional pockets of time when she's napping or when she's sleeping or whenever, or when she's eating, whatever it is, and utilize those pockets of time and be intentional with that time. But it's simple. You show up on stories. I think I said show up once on stories a day and create content and write 3 Instagram posts a week. And then everything else is you working on your brain and working on the thoughts that are going to come up, like, it's not working, things aren't working for me, I don't know how this is working. And then we coach through those things so you don't self-sabotage, so you don't just stop showing up, right? Like, a big piece of the work that I do with my clients is helping them stay consistent, which sounds so basic, but staying consistent comes from certainty that you are going to be successful. Being consistent is just showing up for yourself and your business, knowing that there is going to be a payoff. So in being consistent, that comes from your thoughts about yourself, that comes from your thoughts about your business, that comes from the thoughts about what you are doing here in this space and how you can help people. So if you were certain that the clients were going to come and that everything was going to be okay, of course you would fucking show up. Of course you would create the content. It would be inevitable. But again, if we're coming back to the overwhelm piece, you feel overwhelmed because you think it's not working. You feel overwhelmed because you think, oh, I shouldn't be doing it this way, or I'm doing it wrong. And I would implore you to talk to yourself as if you're doing everything right. As long as you are doing a couple of the things to be visible and to show up and be seen and to create content for your ideal client so they can be attracted to you, as long as you are doing that, you are doing more than enough. And the overwhelm is just, again, coming from those thoughts of, I am not doing enough, or this isn't enough, or this is too much and I can't handle it. And if you're neurodivergent, this is a whole other can of worms, right? Because we have sensitive little brains that feel overwhelmed often. And it has really been in coaching myself and telling myself, are you really overwhelmed, Jill? Or is this just a story that you're telling yourself because it helps you shut down and it helps you stay small? Are you really overwhelmed, Jill? Or are you telling yourself you should be doing all these things on your task list that you put on your task list? Because, again, if you're neurodivergent, you're probably putting a million things on your list and then feeling like shit if you do 80 of them and not 81, right? And it's always me creating the experience of being overwhelmed. And I don't want you to think that I am discrediting you, okay? I am sure if you have kids, if you have a 9 to 5, it just means that you need to get very specific with the things that you're doing. You just need to have these couple of things that are really important and just focus on those things. Take care of your brain and do your non-negotiables, which to me, when I was first starting out and when I worked full time, so I worked 10 hours in the office and then I would come home from work, it would look like either working with clients or creating content and showing up. That was literally it. It was creating content, and if I was working with somebody, it would be working with them and showing up. I didn't concern myself with like, oh my God, I need to create all these offers and all these courses and all of these things. I just concerned myself with getting clients. And then when I got them, I focused on working with my clients and what that meant. But if I was first starting out, of course, all the stuff that's happening in your personal life aside, I would be creating content and showing up. And then I would be working on my brain to make sure that I continuously showed up and that I continuously worked on the way that I felt about myself and thought about myself so I could come through powerfully in my content so those things didn't affect my ability to show up and be seen and to create content that would attract somebody to me. So, like I've said a million times in this episode, overwhelm is created through your thoughts, and it is coming from your thoughts of, I am not doing enough, I should be doing more, shouldn't, whatever it is. So really look at those thoughts. Really look at those thoughts and look at what actions you're taking. How can you simplify them? How can you get down to the bare fucking bones? And how can you recognize when your brain is telling you the story of, I'm so overwhelmed, and how can you step back and be like, what is urgent? What do I need to be doing this week, or the world will come crumbling down? Remember, you are your own boss. You get to decide what work you have to do. It's just like me when I'm like, oh, I have to record podcast episodes. Currently, I'm recording 3 in a row, which is really hard. But when I catch that, oh, I have to record the episodes. No, I don't. I don't have to record shit. I don't have to do anything. The only thing that I have to do is show up for my clients because they are paying me and I am working with them. I have to show up for my clients, but everything else in this fucking business is optional. I get to choose. If I don't want to record podcast episodes for April, I don't have to. But how does it help me to tell myself that I have to do anything in my business? It doesn't. And when I start to feel overwhelmed, I take a step back and I think, what can I do that will satisfy this need to get things done? But how can I be kind to myself? And what exactly is urgent? Nothing is ever urgent in your business because you are your own boss. And that comes from impatience of things happening, and things are going to happen when they happen. And you just have to continue to believe in yourself and persevere and do the work. Because when things start happening, you're going to start being like, holy shit, now I have clients and all of these things are happening. And the overwhelm is going to continue unless you begin with these thoughts now. You are the owner of your business and you get to decide what tasks you do. And you get to decide what is urgent and what needs to get done. And if that feels so overwhelming, just start really simple and work your way forwards. Okay? I feel like I have a lot to say about this, but I don't want it to be a super long episode. But essentially, your thoughts create overwhelm, and you are the owner of your business, and you get to decide what you should and shouldn't be doing. Examine those thoughts that are telling you what you should or shouldn't be doing, and really identify if they're aligned with you, or if you just learned it from somewhere else and you're deciding that that person knows better or knows best. And just get down to the basics. What do you need to do to keep yourself going? How can you take care of yourself with kindness and compassion? If you were certain that everything was going to work out exactly how it was supposed to, how would you move forward? And start to rewire that story of overwhelm. Start to rewire those beliefs and stories that you tell yourself that busy is good and overwhelm is hard work, so that's good, and all of those things that come into play. But you can grow your business in a very simple way by only doing a couple of things a day. But as long as you stick with it and stay consistent, and that comes from working on your brain and working on your feelings, then you will absolutely accomplish everything that you are putting your mind to. Okay? I love ya. Love you so much. Book a sales call to work with me in one-to-one coaching. Okay? Mwah. Bye. Thanks for listening to the From Imposter to Empowered podcast. Head to the show notes to find out how you can take this work deeper with me in one-to-one coaching or in my lifetime group coaching program, The Worthy Woman Method. In the show notes, you'll also find a free 3-day challenge to start the process of overcoming your inner imposter. And once you're done with that, screenshot this episode and share it on Instagram, tagging me at YourCoachJill so we can connect. See you next time.